predictions. Everyone wants to know who's going to win it all, and today we'll tell you that and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Matchup by Field Vision Sports. Our expert analysis on matchups and statistics will give you the edge in betting and on your friends. Use our insights to predict NFL outcomes like nobody else and always be the smartest guy in the room.
Listen more for the latest on the remaining QB situations in the NFL and a few roster moves. Then we'll tell you who wins every division, give predictions on every playoff team, and tell you who makes the Final Four and ultimately give our Super Bowl predictions. Stick along for the whole ride. It won't disappoint. Welcome into the Matchup by Field Vision Sports. Excited to have you with us as always. It is Thursday, August 29th as we record. You know what that means. It is 1 week until the NFL season kicks off. We are 7 days away from football season. I'm your host, Sasha Bushka, joined by our head of football ops, Cody Alexander, and Scott Bushka. Fellas, how we feeling today?
Doing good. I can't say I'm effing fired up. I've drank like 8 cups of coffee. We're launching a company in 5 days. My kids know it. I haven't slept in several days. Been tweeting 5 a.m. I'm fired up again, ready to yell at the two of you about our NFL predictions.
I'm fired up to yell at you guys too. It's exciting times. We'll start. As Scott alluded to there, we're going to get into our predictions across the league today, which is exciting stuff. We'll even repurpose all these into an article so you can see it all in writing this time tomorrow or this time today, because you're probably listening on Friday. So that's good stuff right there. But just real quick, a few pieces of news that nobody cares about. Russell Wilson's going to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots.
I definitely care about neither of those, especially the Patriots, but also the Steelers, because both those teams are going to suck. But Cody, I'm sure you have some better football takes on it.
Yeah, the Steelers going with Russell Wilson. I mean, let's be honest. Probably, if you look at it at a pure quarterback standpoint, Russell Wilson probably is a little bit better than Justin Fields. I don't think that they really had a plan. I think what Russell Wilson does probably fits a little bit better for Arthur Smith. It's just very interesting to me that you have a offensive coordinator that wants to throw the ball in the middle of the field and run, and then you have a quarterback that wants to play hero ball. And doesn't necessarily is like averse throwing in the middle of the field. So to me, it's an interesting one. The Jacoby Brissett thing really, I think, has to come down to there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of question marks around the Patriots offensive line. And I think that's just, hey, let's just keep the kid clean. We know Brissett's going to be a pro about it. He'll be able to get us through maybe the first month of the season, 6 weeks of the season. And then we can ease Drake May in there. Let's be honest, they are a smart franchise. They don't, Bill Belichick's not necessarily the greatest player evaluator outside of defense, but I do think that they understand we don't want to get this guy hurt early in his career.
We talked about this last week, Cody. I just don't. I get not wanting to get him hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's football. There's always a risk of injury. I just don't get not giving your first round number 3 overall pick, who's actually looked like he really has a chance to develop in a meaningful way and get substantially better over the course of 17 games. He's been in the preseason. I just don't get not giving him a chance to do that when you know you're going to be in a substantially better spot at the start of next year if you do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I understand the logic of not playing him. Like that's what I alluded to. Like I get the coaching aspect of it. The problem is the same thing that we talked about last week is when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, you don't necessarily want to waste his years. I do understand well, the Packers set Jordan Love. Yeah, but they also had Aaron Rodgers. This was before Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. So they had a, future Hall of Fame quarterback as a starter. They drafted his backup. You're going to sit a couple years of play. You just we get that. But this is not that case.
Right.
He's also a mobile quarterback. So I'm with you on the logic of it. this sounds great on paper, but in reality, he probably needs to be playing.
Yeah, I think your point about keeping him clean is a good one. Your point about the rookie contracts is a good one. I think what you need, like, if he doesn't start the season, fine, but Drake May has to play at some point this year. You need
100%.
him to hit the ground running in year 2. You like when you got a guy on a rookie contract, if they can't hit the ground running in year 2, by the time they're good, you have to pay them anyways. So you kind of defeated the purpose of having a guy on a rookie contract. So I think he plays at some point this year. You usually know within a few games if a guy's got upside and like is gonna have a chance in the NFL. And then if he's good the last, say he plays 8 games this year, then you know what you have going into year 2 and you hit the ground running. But it'll be interesting to see at what point he comes in. One thing you worry about when you play the veteran is like, well, if he's too good or if we win too much, then we'll never get the rookie in. I don't think the Patriots are going to have that problem.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a team that is planning on winning some games this year, we'll move into that, is the Dallas Cowboys. They signed Dalvin Cook to their practice squad yesterday. I don't want to like make a big deal out of the Dalvin Cook signing because I think like Dalvin Cook is a used asset that isn't going to make that much of a difference. But it highlights a bigger point is like we think most people think the Dallas Cowboys are real contenders and their running back room leaves something to be desired.
Yeah, I live in DFW. There is a odd infatuation with Zeke Elliott here in the Dallas area, and basically looking at Jerry Jones when I say that. I don't know, I think it really bothered him. And I mean, obviously I don't know personally, but it just from the way that it went down last year, I think it really bothered him that he played for the Patriots and then he didn't play for the Cowboys. He didn't finish his career with the Cowboys. There's this weird obsession with Zeke Elliott. And when you do look at the roster and where they are with that running back situation, they didn't draft anybody. You have Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn, who a lot of people were arguing Deuce Vaughn might not even have made the roster. And here we are. Those are your three running backs. You bring another 29-year-old running back. You've got 2 of them on the roster now that are going to turn 30 during the season. It makes 0 sense. And it just kind of compounds with what we know about the contract situations around CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Micah Parsons.
Dalvin Cook is a used asset. I'm sure he appreciates you calling him that, Sasha.
Hey, listen, used car market is on fire at times. So it doesn't mean you're not useful anymore. It just means you're not driving it off the lot if you got the credit score you want.
Right. It doesn't smell like that new car. The Cowboys running back room does suck. I'm on the Rico Dowdle train. So much so that I drafted him in fantasy and everyone made fun of me. But I think I don't know, late. I mean, not early.
It's fine.
Not early, but late. I think 3 games in, they're going to realize that Dalvin Cook is old as shit and Zeke Elliott's old as shit and slow. So they're going to Rico Dowdle.
I really think, and this to me is the wildest thing, because this was the argument. We had this exact same argument last year around the DFW area, was you can't bring Zeke Elliott back on a veteran contract and use him as a blocking back on 3rd down. Like, that can't be the excuse. He has to add value. We've talked about this when we did our running back episode. Anymore at running back, you have to add value. Otherwise, you'll never make it to your second contract. When you do, it'll be for a different team and you'll be backing up somebody that does add value. So I do agree with you, Scott. I think they're going to make Zeke Elliott the starter because that's just what Jerry Jones wants and that's what's going to happen. But I do think Rico Dowdle is the one that we're going to see carrying the ball, 20 times a game, with Zeke Elliott being more of a 3rd down back and a power back towards the goal line. Does Dalvin Cook even break the roster at some point? Probably. I think this was a way to keep Deuce Vaughn on the roster, but not put him out for waiver wire because I think they felt like maybe somebody might pick him up. I don't know, but that to me, that's where you can then just switch those two. So I don't know. It's hard to tell at this point what is going through the Joneses' mind in terms of roster management.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll do you one better than drafting Rico Dowdle, Scott. Somebody in my league just spent like actual fab money, free agent bidding dollars, $10 on Dalvin Cook when the Cowboys signed him. So our producer backstage says that you definitely took Rico Dowdle in the first. So
Oh man,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
doubt.
Okay, Felix.
All right, let's get into it. What do you say?
Drafting Dalvin Cook in your fantasy league at paying actual money for him, very suspect.
it's a
Well,
choice.
Yeah. He didn't draft him, but he picked him up after the draft and used fab on him. So we're gonna do something fun today. Let's get out of these like useless Cowboy notes because we know they're not gonna win a playoff game. And let's get into our predictions for the year. We got 1 week until the season. It's high time we let you guys know how it's gonna play out. So we're gonna give you our division winners, our wild cards, our Final Four, Super Bowl picks, maybe the MVP at the end. Don't know if we'll have time, but should be a lot of fun. Buckle up. We're gonna start in the AFC. We'll go AFC North, and I'm gonna just so we can assure that one smart thing comes out of our mouth in the course of these predictions. We'll start with Cody. AFC North. Who you got winning the AFC North this year?
I'm actually going to go with a surprise. I'm going to go with the Bengals, and here is why. I think we're going to have Joe Burrow healthy for a full season. We've known that when he's healthy, he's going to produce. He's going to have two good receivers on the outside, two of the better outside receivers in the NFL. We know that. I think they are carrying right now on their active roster 4 tight ends. What that tells you is they're going to pack it in. I do like their running back situation as well. They're going to pack things in. They're going to play ISO ball outside. They got Zach. Don't forget, they got Zach Moss, who really blew up last year with the Colts. So to me, I really like the direction using extra protection for Joe Burrow, playing ISO ball outside. That's the offensive piece. The defensive piece, they got 2 safeties. They went and got Geno Stone, who's really productive for the Ravens, and then they got Von Bell, who is going to be coming back to Cincinnati. One of the biggest things that they missed last year was safety production. They're going to move Dax Hill outside to outside corner. He was a safety last year. They're going to move him back to his more natural spot at corner. This is a defense that I think is going to make that's going to make noises. He's back to where Lou Amorano is back to where he wants to be. And then the production loss with the Ravens compounded with the new DC and kind of everything that's going on there. I think the Bengals are going to win this division.
What do you think, Scott?
That was smart by Cody. There was a lot of thought put into that. It turns out I actually have the same pick with way less football knowledge or backing. I this division is always one of the most competitive divisions, right? It will be again. I was going back and forth between the Bengals and the Ravens. I think we've talked about this a lot between us as a football crew, but the Ravens lost the most havoc and or threat rating of any team in the league in the offseason. And they lost their wonder kid DC, Mike McDonald. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit. And in my mind, this is a bit of a comeback FU season by Joe Burrow, right? Like we know if he's healthy, and this is the first training camp he's been healthy in for a couple years now. When he's healthy, he's really good. Top 5 quarterback-ish, really good. And I think he's going to be on a mission. I am worried about the vibe there and Jamar Chase holding out and like T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. There's a lot of players because that ownership group is cheap and never wants to pay people that aren't super happy. But my spidey sense tells me the Bengals are sick of people not feeling like they are one of the elite teams and are going to be on a bit of a mission this year. So I also had the Bengals.
Fellas, it's a clean sweep. And I have evidence. I wrote it down in advance. I took the Bengals as well. I think it's like more of a commentary that we're all a little bit down on the Ravens. And like if the Bengals play their best football, they'll have a chance to beat out the Ravens in the division. Now, that being said, since we all picked the Bengals, the Ravens will probably go 16-1.
Yes.
But Joe Burrow, like when he stays healthy, the Bengals play good football. He's a winner. If it comes down to like a late in the season game between those two teams, Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year, but I'll still take Joe Burrow in a big game, both sides healthy, to get that victory. So I went Bengals as well. We'll start with Scott in the AFC East.
Yeah, just to finish off the North, it's interesting that there was not a single word mentioned about the Browns. Like the Russell Wilson-led Steelers are not worth talking about, but the Browns, we had them as our number one defense, but I just don't think anyone has any confidence in Deshaun Watson. But
Yeah, and
anyways,
I'll just parlay that. Like I was thinking about this when I was writing this down. It's like, how are you going to write off the number one defense? You know, we forget Flacco went on a run last year that was like unprecedented, something that he hadn't done since he was with the Ravens. And then here we are, we're looking at the Browns, and this to me is like, this is an evergreen statement of the Browns are going to have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, yet they cannot figure out the quarterback spot, and they anchored themselves with Deshaun Watson. Essentially, they have to play him. If you go with Jameis Winston, you're looking at probably 20 interceptions with 20 touchdowns. You're still not going to be able to be successful. And then you look, I like Dorian Thompson Robinson, but he's not going to get you to the playoffs, even with the number one defense.
Jameis Winston is like I was gonna say Barry Bonds, but we'll go with a more recent call out. Bobby Witt Jr. He's a 30-30 guy. 30 touchdowns.
That's it. No, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're just going to get. He's going to have some unbelievable throws. It's going to look really great, and then literally the next play is going to throw a pick six, and you're just like, okay. And to me, in this division in particular, it's one of the toughest divisions because I mean the Steelers are going to look for the Steelers. We know for a fact because Tomlin will drag them to the finish line. They are going to go 9-8. Like they are going to go 9-8. It does not matter who's at quarterback. But to me, I think we're looking at a 9-8 team with the Browns because I think it goes back to what happened with the Broncos a couple years ago. Was you have a top 10 defense for much of the year, and then the offensive ineptitude just hits in, and eventually the defense gets tired of picking up after the offense, and what you're going to end up getting, especially from the Ravens and Bengals, who are such a far step ahead on offense on than either of those other two teams. That's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
Cody was clearly waiting to talk about the Browns.
He was teed up for it. Yeah.
I definitely, it was on my mind for sure. It was 100% on my mind. You have the number one defense and you can't figure it out on offense.
The last point I'll make about the Browns, and then we will move to another division because if every division takes this long, we'll be here till tomorrow. Defense is historically volatile, and Scott's talked about this, and like so, just because they had the number one defense last year doesn't mean it'll be as good this year. And offense is less volatile. And like the best offense they played last year was when Joe Flacco was their quarterback, who's now the backup in Indianapolis. So, neither of you derail this throw off to Scott. AFC East.
All right,
Scott, who wins?
All right, AFC East. As much as we talked about the North, this could be the most interesting division in football. I think 3 teams that legit can win it. You've got we'll exclude the Jacoby Brissett-led New England Patriots here. Bills, Dolphins, or Jets, they all could win it. I'm going with what I think is a bit of an upset here because the Bills have won this division 3 straight years. I've got the Dolphins winning the East. And here's why. We all love the Dolphins offense. It's going to be explosive, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that Mike McDaniel certainly has something to prove in terms of making midseason adjustments and not getting derailed after the first several weeks of the season. And Tua has to prove that he can throw in cold weather. Um, but the reason that I'm picking the Dolphins is because I really like their defense. And what we know is that they brought in they lost some players too, like losing Christian Wilkins in the middle is going to hurt. But I really like bringing Kendall Fuller at defensive back. Jalen Ramsey should be back healthy. And then in an ideal world for them, they've got their two Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, their two edges back healthy by the end of the year, which we know at the end of the year last year, they were completely, uh, you know, demolished from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the year that they get enough from their defense and McDaniel with Tua figures out midseason adjustments to at least enough to win the division. We'll talk about what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I picked the Dolphins, but I actually think that the reason why is they are going to be, I think that they're going to try and boat race teams as much as they possibly can in the first half of the year. They're going to try and keep people healthy. I think the defense, I like Anthony Weaver and what he brings to the table at Miami. He's going to bring aggression. They had the most cover zero blitzes in the preseason these past preseason games. I think that they're going to be able to get after some teams. I think that that's the plan right now. It's like, let's get a first round bye. If they can get the first round bye, they can, injury luck is one of those things that are volatile this year. There's no way that they're going to have as bad of luck unless you're the Ravens with running back health. You know that you're probably going to have better injury luck than you did the year before. And so I think that this is a team that's primed to be able to go win maybe, 12 games, 13 games, really push the Chiefs for that first round overall home field advantage. And this is a team that I think if they can get that home field advantage, this is a team that can go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah. I agree with the point that the Dolphins want to get a first round bye, get home playoff games. If what they did against the Chiefs in the playoffs last year is any indication, they do not want to be in cold weather come playoff time. That said, and for what it's worth, the Jets are the current Vegas favorite to win this division. I think that's just a lot of people live in New York, and there's a lot of Jets fans, I guess. That said, the second favorite is the Buffalo Bills. They've had a stranglehold on this division for a while. I think Josh Allen's going to figure it out. I think on defense, they'll be still serviceable, although they did lose some key pieces. Last year, the Dolphins got off to a hot start, fell back late in the year as the weather got cold. The Bills got hot late. I'm going to go with the Bills one more season to win the AFC East.
My only concern with the Bills is just they don't have a true number one receiver. And I get what there was that cryptic message that they had in the media. Well, we're a bunch of team guys in the receiver room. I really like, McDermott said that, like, I really like that receiver room. They're just willing to work. They're going to run more 12 personnel, which is going to really help those guys out a little bit. The problem that I have with them, though, is just defensively. There's so many question marks around that defensive line. They lose Matt Milano. I do like their corners. I mean, Taron Johnson is probably arguably the best nickel. Him and McDuffie are probably 1 and 1B. Then I do like Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford outside. Their safety room is a mess. I mean, the guy that they drafted, Cole Bishops from Utah, hasn't even practiced at all. I mean, he hasn't been able to play at all during the preseason. I just don't know. That's why I give them the mark to the Dolphins. And then the Jets, Aaron Rodgers can have to prove that he can be a playoff quarterback again. I just need to see him play. It's kind of the same thing with the Browns. When we look at the Jets, I see the Browns, really good defensive, maybe one of the best defensive rosters in the NFL. Can the quarterback lead them to the promised land?
Yeah. I think the Browns is a good analogy for the Jets, with the slight caveat being Aaron Rodgers is better than Deshaun Watson. But I agree. Like, we haven't seen it from, he's similar from the standpoint that we haven't seen it from Aaron Rodgers at an elite level in a number of years at this point. So
yeah. Well,
I don't trust that offense.
His
I also don't.
Sorry.
No, I was also just going to say, I don't trust Saleh and the vibe in that locker room. And just quickly on the Bills is like, I think this is the year that we find out just how good Josh Allen is because he doesn't have much around him in the receiver room. We're gonna find out he's good. I'm worried about Matt Milano and that loss because it really hurt him on defense last year. So I think it's the year the Dolphins get over the hump. Sorry, Sasha. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no worries. I was just gonna say Rodgers was mediocre his last year in Green Bay, missed all of last year. So you're 2 years removed from his best play, but you're not so far removed that it's impossible that you'd see it again. Just real quick on the AFC North that we talked about, the Ravens are just barely favored to win that division, plus 145, Bengals plus 165, and Browns are all the way at plus 450. So I think we were pretty close on that, thinking it was a kind of a 2-horse race. I told you that the Jets were favored in the AFC East. Dolphins and Bills are very close behind. Now we'll get to the second, according to Vegas, least competitive division in the AFC South. And I think this one will be a clean sweep as well. But I'll go first. And maybe you guys will surprise me. I'm going with the Houston Texans. They're plus 105 to win the division. So quite a bit ahead of the Jaguars and the Colts in that regard. CJ Stroud's going into his second year, had a great rookie year. They added Stephon Diggs, put him on a 1-year deal, so he should be on his best behavior. Like basically made it, you can be a free agent after this year. We'll pay you the rest of your contract this year, and hopefully we get the one great season out of you. Then you've also got Nico Collins and Tank Dell, added Joe Mixon, Will Anderson Jr. and Stingley Jr. on defense, should be ascending assets, added Daniil Hunter. I like Houston Texans to win the AFC South, and I don't know if it'll be particularly close.
I'll go because I'm going to dovetail off that last comment, Sasha. I also like the Texans. I think it could be closer than people think. And I mean, the thing that's fun about this division is if you remember this time last year, all anyone could talk about was how bad the AFC South sucked, right? And essentially like the 4 of the worst teams in the league. And you're sitting here looking at it now, being like, everyone loves the Texans as a dark horse to compete for an AFC championship and potentially go to the Super Bowl. But the Colts are, I mean, we don't know what we're going to get from Anthony Richardson, but without Anthony Richardson, they were a first down away from beating the Texans in a win or go home to go to the playoff game last year. And I think that's primarily because Shane Steichen is really good and he's one of the premier play callers in the NFL. And we know what he did with Jalen Hurts when he was in Philly. So if he can get like a healthy Anthony Richardson for 17 games, who knows what they can do. And I'm not a huge Doug Peterson, Trent Baalke, Jacksonville Jaguars fan, but it's a talented team. Let's not forget that. They were playing, they won the AFC South 2 years ago. And then last year they were 8-3 and kind of fell apart with some injuries to Trevor Lawrence late. But you could still argue that that's a team that should compete for that division. So I think it's going to be more competitive than you think. I give the Texans the edge.
Yeah, and I think we agree on the Texans. I'm with you, Scott. I actually think that this division is going to come down to the wire. I do think that we're looking at probably an 11-win team. I do think the Texans are going to end up winning more than they lose, but I do really think that one team that we are also not talking about is the Titans, who defensively are going to be very good. They were decent last year. They have, they go out and they get Snead and Awuzie. I know it's not like a sexy corner pick, but I do feel like they got guys. They have 3 really good safeties. They're really good up the middle. It's just going to come down to Will Levis, and if you like Will Levis or not on that. The Jaguars, I'm with you as well. This is a talented roster offensively. Defensively, they're really good up front. The question mark is going to be in the secondary. Can they hold up in the secondary? We know Nielsen's going to want to run a bunch of cover 1, and I just don't know. I mean, Tyson Campbell was hurt much of last year. He was terrible in man coverage last year, but most of that probably can go to his hamstring injury that was on and off. So I do think that you see a little bit of a boost from him. But again, I don't think that they get off to the hot start that they did last year. To me, the Colts are really kind of the wild card here because it all comes down to AR. If he comes out and he ends up being what we saw in those first 4 games and he can put a 17-game season together, I think that it's interesting. But again, they have the same question marks that the Jaguars have. Defensively, I just don't know what we're going to get from them. I think Houston by far is the most complete team, and that's why I'm going with them.
Yeah. Another clean sweep. We'll move over to the AFC West. I would be very surprised if this isn't a clean sweep as well. This division has the heaviest favorite to win the division in the league, and they're minus 270 and have won it 8 straight years. I'll let Cody give his thoughts first. And if you're going to pick who I think, tell me if there is a team that can challenge them, who it would be.
All right, I'm going to go with the Broncos. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Are you kidding me? Like, no, I think that the Chiefs are by far head over everything. They are the number one team. And to be honest with you, you have to pick the Chiefs until somebody else beats them. I do think that the most interesting team to me is going to be no one. I don't think that this is going to be anybody that comes close. And the reason why I say this, I know that people are like, oh, well, what about the Chargers? The Chargers would be the only team that you could see coming in and saying, hey, but they got Justin Herbert. I just think that they're a year off. I think they're going to want to get personnel that they want on defense. I don't think that they really like their defense personnel very much. I don't really like their defense personnel very much. I think they're aging at edge with Bosa and Mack. I don't think Mack has the protection he had last year. Outside of Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., who are we going to get there? The Broncos have a rookie quarterback, so I'm going to throw them out. I don't think that they like their defensive roster at all either. The Raiders are interesting. I think their defensive roster is good. I don't think that they know who they want to play at quarterback. I don't think either one of those quarterbacks are going to be a playoff contender. And so, therefore, the only team that really has any kind of argument here is the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the saying is head and shoulders above the rest, but I like head over everything.
Yeah, I was like, I want to hyperbolize this, and I was like, I don't know how to do this, so they're just going to be heads over everybody.
Head over everything. We're going to make that a thing.
I mean, yeah. For the record, I don't think hyperbolize is a word either, but we'll take it. We'll take it under advisement.
Yeah.
It's 100% a word
here, but just disclaimer. We try to keep it neutral and we talk about all the teams. Scott and I are Chiefs fans. I apologize that we won 3 out of the last 5 Super Bowls. It hasn't been good forever. We've been rooting for the Chiefs since Joe Montana was the quarterback, and not the San Francisco 49ers Joe Montana. But he did take him on took him to an AFC championship game, I think. But I guess I'll go since I'm already talking. The Chiefs are going to win this division. It's not going to be particularly close. I agree with the Chargers assessment. I think there's too much roster turnover to like, I think Jim Harbaugh's a great coach. I just don't think their rebuild can come to fruition this year. And so they'll get some weapons in next year. They got the tip of the spear in Joe Alt, so they got that going for him. I guess he's a weapon if you listen to Jim Harbaugh. But I find it hard to believe that somebody's going to challenge the Chiefs for this division.
Yeah, I agree. Clean sweep. I'll take the Chiefs. I'm not going to talk about it much because it's probably worth talking about the Chiefs more in the playoffs. I am really excited to watch Steve Spagnuolo make Bo Nix look like a child. And I have to apologize to Cody. I looked it up on the Google machine, and hyperbolize is a word. So right. I'm taking the Chiefs, and hyperbolize is a word.
My literary back.
Hey Scott, we'll leave it with you. Give us your 3 AFC wildcards all together. Give a few thoughts if you want to, but let's zip through these AFC wildcards.
I literally had them written down on a Post-it note that I somehow managed to misplace in the last 5 minutes as we were talking about this. But my 3 AFC wildcard teams are the Ravens out of the North, the Bills out of the East, and the one surprise, I'm going with the Jags out of the South. Doug Peterson gets them to 9-8, maybe 10-7, and they sneak in. I went Jags over Colts and Jags over Jets. So Ravens, Bills, Jags.
I've got Bills, Ravens, and then I think the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers gets them to the playoffs if he stays healthy.
Okay. I'm writing down your guys' picks as we speak because I just remembered that I said I would write down everybody's picks and then didn't do it while we talked. So then we got to wild cards. But my wild cards are, and Cody, you said Ravens, Bills,
Jets.
Jets. Okay. I have a similar idea. I have the Ravens as well out of the North. So we all have the Ravens getting into the playoffs in that 2-man race in the North. I picked the Bills to win the division. You guys both picked the Dolphins. So I have the Dolphins getting a wild card. And then when I thought about it, I was like, AFC West, I don't think there's a second playoff team there. And I don't think there's a second playoff team in the South, although it's possible. So I was looking, do I give a third one to the North or the East? And I just basically it comes down to the Jets and the Browns at that point. I guess I trust Aaron Rodgers more than Deshaun Watson. So I went with the Jets as well. So I have
Good
Ravens,
choice.
Dolphins, Jets. So I have for my AFC playoff teams, Bengals, Bills, Texans, Chiefs, Ravens, Dolphins, Jets. Cody has Bengals, Dolphins, Texans, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Jets. And Scott has Bengals, Dolphins, Texans, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Jaguars.
Yeah. You guys are sleeping on the South. Could have been the Colts, but I'm going with the Jags.
Okay.
You should have just went with all that, the 2 wild cards from that. Just put the Colts and the Jags in there.
Yeah. There could be an argument made, I guess, that those other divisions beat up on each other, but if the South gets 3 playoff teams in, by nature they're a good division. So that argument that's kind of a straw man argument, anyways. But let's dive into the NFC a little bit, and then we'll get into playoff pictures. We'll go the same order. We'll go to the NFC North, or same order of divisions, not necessarily same order of picks. I'll start here. I was very tempted to go with the Packers and Jordan Love, ascending, and the Packers' new defensive coordinator and a lot of young weapons. But we did our power rankings that are going out today, and this team was very high in them. I believe third. I'll go with the Lions. I think they have another good year in them. Jared Goff is proving that he's more than just a stopgap from a trade until you get the next guy. He's actually a really good quarterback. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, great weapons. I think their defense could get better. They got some new secondary pieces. So I'll go with the Lions in the NFC North.
Yeah, I like this. This to me is the most fascinating division, just because there's so many storylines around it. But until we had the injury, the quarterback injury with JJ McCarthy and with the Vikings, that kind of knocks them out. I do think their defense is still going to be good. Justin Jefferson's still going to catch 1,000 yards, but I just don't think they're going to be a threat. I've got the Lions as well. If you look at this roster top to bottom in this division, it's got to be the Lions. In fact, if you're not arguing the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, you're probably not paying attention. What they did in the offseason, getting DJ Reader to kind of shore up the inside of that. They were already number one run. They're one of the top run defenses in the NFL last year. They went and got Carlton Davis, who is a man coverage corner. They went and got Terrion Arnold. They moved Brian Branch back to safety. They even got Enos Rackstraw from Mizzou to go with Amick Robertson and nickel. To me, everything points back towards Aaron Glenn's going to get in his comfort zone. They're going to run a lot of cover one. They're going to put a lot of pressure on offenses to keep up with their offense. So I like the Lions.
Cody, would you say if you don't have the Lions on your list of Super Bowl contenders, you should throw your list away?
Throw it out. Just throw it out. If they are not on just your Super Bowl contenders, please throw your list out. Just start over.
All right, Scott.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing how you can judge how strong Cody feels about a take based on how quickly he talks. And just so the listeners know, we did not speed up his voice there when he was talking. He was just talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
I apologize.
I hate that. No, we love it. I hate that we're doing this, but I'm also going with the Lions, so it's a clean sweep. Everyone loves the Packers. I like the Packers as well. I'm gonna have them in the playoffs. I think this is one of the most interesting divisions. Vikings are less interesting to me, but I think the Bears are gonna be better for sure. Yeah, I just think Lions roster top to bottom is one of the best in the league. Their coaching staff is one of the best in the league. It was such a huge deal for Ben Johnson to come back. Like I don't have them here if Ben Johnson leaves. So yeah, I'll take the Lions. I think they're one of the best teams in the league. I would expect their defense to get better. All the things Cody said.
Yeah, and let the record show that our producer wants love for the Bears. I got to see it first.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me completely if the Bears somehow made the playoffs. Like, they actually weren't that bad last year, and if Caleb Williams is what people hope, it's definitely possible. But also, like, assuming that the NFC North's not going to get 3 teams, they got to leapfrog either the Lions or the Packers. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. Let's move on to the NFC East, the Glamour division.
Glamour.
The what is it? The I-95 corridor? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
This gets all the coverage. The Commanders, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and why did I just lose the last team in the
The Giants.
East? The Giants. Yeah, exactly.
You lost them because
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is their quarterback.
Yes,
Exactly.
they're lost.
So we'll start with Cody here. Who wins the NFC East? And remember where you live.
Yeah, I will preface it with this. What team did more in the offseason to change their fortunes from the year prior? And it's the Eagles. I don't think Dallas did anything to change what they are. Yeah, okay, you signed a linebacker. You have linebackers now on your roster. You're not going to be playing dime 90% of the time in the NFL against 12 personnel. Like, I get that. But I just don't think that they did anything to improve off of what they did last year. To me, this is a team that it can easily slump. I don't think watching Zimmer in the preseason, he did the least outside of probably Jeff Hafley, who did absolutely nothing defensively, schematically to give any tells. Zimmer didn't even use middle of the field disguise and coverages. 93% static looks. I think he literally is running the 21 Vikings defense. I don't think anything's going to change. So my pick for this is going to be the Eagles. I think Kellen Moore, with the use of motion, helps these guys out. This is a dangerous offensive roster, and by just even using motion, because he does not use his running backs in the passing game. That's the only kind of asterisk that you have here with Saquon Barkley on the roster. But you have these 2 really good outside receivers. They're going to throw motion into it now. I think the scheme is just better, and I think defensively they finally got the guy that they want in Fangio. And so, to me, it's kind of almost a no-brainer that it's the Eagles.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm going Cowboys.
Cowboy up.
This is I just think the Cowboys have a better roster, and the reality is, the Cowboys have won more games over the past 3 years than anyone except for the Chiefs, and I think the football world at large is getting a little bit caught up in some of the contract negotiations and roster mismanagement, which is real. And I've been on this podcast making fun of Jerry Jones several times over the last month, but the reality is their offense is going to be one of the best in the league again. I don't totally know what to make with Zimmer and the defense, but I think based on the way that defense tailed off towards the end of last year, they needed a change. And Zimmer has historically been a good defensive coordinator. And Cody, he could be not showing anything in the preseason just to not show anything in the preseason.
100%.
Look, I like a lot of what the Eagles did in the offseason. I like bringing in Saquon Barkley. I like bringing in Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I just think it's a bit of a ticking time. Like, I could see the Eagles going 5-12. I could see them going 12-5. You know, it's like there is a wide range there, and their defense was one of the worst defenses in the league last year. So Fangio will help, but he's got to help a lot. And I kind of see their offense regressing a little bit, especially with the offensive line losing some key pieces.
If there's one of my picks that you could easily talk me out of, it's this one. And it's just what you said. It's the production that the Cowboys have on offense. They're going to score a lot of points. I think that Zimmer is going to keep them in games just because he's kind of, he's going to keep everything relatively stable. What bothers me with the Cowboys, and I didn't mention this, but losing Deron Bland, they haven't been able to get Bland and Diggs playing at the same time at a high level. I think that that's a problem as well. So if there is one pick that you could talk me off of, we're talking like them going like 10-7 instead of 11-6. Like, I think that this is a team that one's going to win 11 games, the other's going to win 10, or one's going to win 12, the other's going to win 11, and it's going to be a 1-game differential. And it's probably going to come to who lost an out of division game, because we know the Cowboys and Eagles are going to pretty much beat the Giants and the Commanders.
I guess that makes me the tiebreaker. I will go with the New York. No, kidding. I didn't even remember they existed at the start of this conversation. So I actually, for what it's worth, the favorite in the NFC East right now, according to FanDuel, is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're minus 140. Cowboys are plus 175. That seems like a big gap to me, especially considering the Cowboys won the division last year. But I am also picking the Eagles. I agree with Scott. There's some volatility there. But we have to remember 2 years ago they were in the Super Bowl. Last year, even though it didn't show its head until late in the year, like, teams that lose the Super Bowl usually don't have a good next season. Like, there's the Super Bowl hangover there. We've talked about it a little bit with the Niners and the potential there, even though I still think the Niners are going to be good. But the Eagles brought in 2 new coordinators after losing both their coordinators the season after they went to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of talent. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Obviously, they brought in Saquon. It'll be interesting to see. It seems like a small deal, but it could be big. Like, if the tush push is a little bit harder to execute without Jason Kelce, because that's a huge, like, it's 1st and 9 at the start of every possession. Right. And that's a big deal, because how many, like, teams end up off the field on 4th and 1 and 3rd and 1? It happens all the time. So that gives me a little pause, but I like the Eagles, mainly because, like, I just couldn't bring myself to pick the Cowboys. And also I don't think they did anything to improve their team, as Cody pointed out. So anything to add on the NFC East before I move us along? All right.
Nothing.
Good. I'll take it. That's the best answer I've had all day. NFC South. This is an interesting division. It's a little bit like the AFC North, but kind of in the inverse. Like, we don't know who's going to win the AFC North because all the teams are pretty good. I think we agree that the NFC South is probably the weakest division in football. At least that's my opinion. I'll let Scott go first on this one. Somebody's got to win it. Who's it going to be?
I'm not going to spend a ton of time breaking it down. I'm going to pick the Falcons. Kirk Cousins has shown to be a not top 5, but top 10-ish to 15-ish quarterback in this league for a long time. I think he's going to raise the floor of their offense, especially considering their starting quarterback last year, Desmond Ridder, literally can't make rosters this offseason. So I like what they did at quarterback. I think Bijan Robinson and some of those playmakers that they've drafted in the top 10 over the last several years are going to see an uptick in production with a serviceable quarterback. And their defense was pretty good last year, and Raheem Morris comes in. He's a defensive coach. So I'll take the Falcons, but Sasha, to what you led with, primarily because I don't love anyone else in the division. I thought about the Saints for a really hot second, and then I thought about Derek Carr being their quarterback, and I stopped thinking about that. So I'll take the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. And if you've know me at all, I'm a big Raheem Morris fan, but I also think I'm also a big just Sean McVay tree offensive guy. I think that what they have with Zach Robinson coming in, I think is going to completely clean up this offense. It's going to allow those guys that have been kind of these. Why is Arthur Smith not using these guys at all? Like Kyle Pitts. Like, I feel like these guys are going to get accentuated in this offense. Cousins isn't really necessarily learning anything new. This is going to be the same. He was running the same thing that he was at the Vikings. I think where they really push themselves ahead of everybody in this division is on defense. I think that them going and get Judon, now they have an actual pass rush. I think the way too that Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake are going to structure this defense, it's really going to kind of unleash Grady Jarrett, who is somebody that we have not talked about for several years, just because he's been one of the better inside guys. But the Falcons defensively aren't anybody to talk about. I think they have with Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. I think also too, this is a defensive back heavy coaching staff on defense, and they're going to get it right on the back end. To your point with the Saints, not only do they have Derek Carr, who is, he's good with a clean pocket. He's good on a standard drop back pass. Outside of that, he's going to struggle. I think that they've kind of run their course with Dennis Allen on there. There were some really weird instances this offseason, the comments on players, and just, I think that their injury luck in the secondary has been really bad as well. I think Tampa Bay, outside of their two safeties, you really can't, and Mike Evans is probably going to get 1,000 yards. Like, you can't really hang your hat on anything there. And then, finally, I just like Atlanta's roster. I just think that it's the best. And then Carolina, obviously, it's kind of one of those situations where you could argue they could be a top 10 defense, but offensively, what are you going to hang your hat on?
Yeah, just a couple of quick observations before I give my pick. For a guy who played cornerback in football, Cody loves safeties. Talks about safeties more than anyone I've ever come across. So, and you know what? Safety doesn't get enough love, so I appreciate it.
Underrated.
Safety doesn't get enough love.
Not
They don't.
near enough. And then I just also want the record to show that our producer is literally texting me books about the Cowboys as we speak. Apparently is not happy that we went 2 out of 3 Eagles. So I guess it's tied again with his pick. I'll go Falcons as well. So we got a clean sweep in the NFC West. I'll bring up, like Scott said, he was close on the Saints. Like, I think if anything, the team that won this division last year was the Buccaneers. And if Baker Mayfield plays as well as he did last year, which I think that's a big if, because like it was the best he'd played in a while, the Buccaneers are right there with the Falcons in terms of chance to win this division. So I think that's the 2-team race in this division. I like the Saints to fall off a little bit, and I think the Panthers are still a year away from being a year away.
Yeah. We've already talked about the NFC South too much, but the question is how much you value Dave Canales.
Right.
And I feel like he had more to do with that Baker resurgence probably than anyone else there. So
yeah, and now with the Panthers, so maybe there's a switch there. But let's move on. NFC West. It's not the glamour division that the AFC or that the NFC East is, but probably maybe the best division in the NFC, right there with the North and the East. I guess they're all just decent except the South. But we'll go. I'll go first on the NFC West. We've talked a lot about the Super Bowl hangover. I couldn't get there with the Rams or the Seahawks. I don't think either of them are good enough to. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but to predict that they're going to outlast the 49ers, I think is a mistake. So I'll go with the San Francisco 49ers to win the NFC West.
Yeah, I think if you look at it top to bottom roster wise, it's still one of the better rosters. I do understand that Trent Williams, is injured, banged up, not playing right now. What are they going to do with Ayuk? Is Ayuk really going to just take the hit and just not play and then just threaten maybe where he's going to be standing next year? Because again, you're not going to trade for a guy that hadn't played for either a year, even though he's going to be talented. I just don't think people are going to pay him what he wants. So I do think that you have one of the best rosters. Yeah, I think the Super Bowl hangover will probably, kind of like it did with the Eagles, it will come later in the season. It won't come early. I think that they'll kind of get out to the races. Shanahan's going to have a plan. But to me, again, if you're not picking the 49ers, I just don't know what your logic is with those. I don't think Seattle's any better than they were last year. I think the Rams are going to be better, but I don't think that they're going to win the division.
Yeah, just real quick, on that, completely lost my train of thought because I was writing down Cody's pick, the 49ers. Scott, just give your pick and it'll come back to me.
Are you going to ask for that to be cut out or not?
No, we don't have to cut
If
that
it
out.
was me
I
or
was going
Cody,
to say
you would not.
on Brandon Ayuk potentially not playing. Like, I think the Le'Veon Bell tail is like, nobody's ever going to just sit out again because, like, that completely did not work out for him. And he's really the only guy who's ever tried it. And it doesn't. And we saw it with Chris Jones last year. He sat out one game, but then he's like, I can't just sit out. Like, you're going to get less money. You're going to lose all the money you would have made that year and then get less money the next year from not playing. It just doesn't make any sense for a player.
Yeah. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, Deshaun Watson, like that sitting out a full year in the NFL has never proven to be a winning strategy. So that doesn't feel smart. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm making a game time decision here. I knew you guys were both going to go Niners. I have Niners written down on my Post-it note that I found. But I'm going Rams. I'm switching it up. Niners clearly have the best roster in the NFC West, in the NFC, probably in the NFL. The Super Bowl hangover is real. We already talked about it with the Eagles last year, and the vibes in Santa Clara are not good. Trent Williams is almost assuredly going to miss a couple games. We already know that running game looks, and quite frankly, that offense looks way different when he's not playing. We could see the same from Ayuk. And I just, the vibes don't feel good. I really like the Rams offense, and I think it could be elite this year. When you talk about Kyron Williams, you talk about Puka Nacua, and you talk about Cooper Kupp. If all three of those guys with Matt Stafford are firing on all cylinders, I think that offense could be really good. I have concerns about the defense, which is actually why I originally wrote down the Niners first. But just for shits and to be different, I'm going with the Rams here.
Yeah, that's the biggest limb we've been out on so far today. So I like it, Scott. Appreciate you taking one for the team and not making it a clean sweep for the third division in a row or 3 out of 4 divisions. So nice work. I'll go first on the wild cards. I think like you have to pick it. I think the Cowboys and Eagles are both making the playoffs.
Yes.
And Scott said he sees some volatility in the Eagles, but I think they're both making it. So I think you have to go Cowboys since I had the Eagles to win the NFC East. I'm also going to go Packers because I almost had them over the Lions in the NFC North, which leaves me, I'm not going to go 3 teams from one division. I said like all but the NFC South are pretty good divisions. So that comes down to the Rams and the Seahawks, I think, in the NFC West. I agree, like the Rams offense could be really good. I'm going to put some stock in Mike McDonald getting the Seahawks defense to be better than it was last year. Geno Smith looking more like 2022 Geno, and like Lockett having one more year in the tank, DK Metcalf still being good, and Jackson Smith and Jigba showing more than he did in his rookie season. And then obviously Ken Walker III is pretty good running back. I will go with the Seahawks as the last playoff team in the NFC.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you too with Cowboys and Packers. I think you have to have them in there. I think in both of those divisions, they're kind of 1B, for the way that I'm picking. I actually am going to go with Scott. I think the Rams are built to make the playoffs this year. Defensively, there are question marks, but I thought that they cleaned up a lot of the stuff that they did. Now, everybody's kind of looking at the linebacker situation. They traded one of the better linebackers in Ernest Jones. what's up with that. I think it just tells you, sorry, I almost sneezed. I think it almost tells you what they want to do defensively. They got Cam Curl, who's one of the best box safeties in the NFL. They want to play a lot of 5-man front. They're actually front loaded on the 5-man front. So I think that this is a defense that's going to kind of sneak up on people and be kind of sneaky good. So I have the Cowboys, the Packers, and then the Rams making it in the wild card.
I like that.
Yeah.
Scott?
I've got Packers, which feels like a no-brainer with the Lions in the North. I've got the Eagles, and I've got the Niners. So my 3 wild cards are Packers, Eagles, Niners.
And I really think the NFC just in general is very much front loaded. I think we kind of have an idea. I think the West, what you look at with the Rams and the Seahawks is what's going to determine who you have at that bye spot. But in terms of like, what's the easiest division to kind of pick, it's NFC by far, because the top teams are the top teams. It really comes down to who's going to win those games between the Rams and the Seahawks.
Yeah. I think Sasha has a point with the Bears. If I see one team that's like it could come up and surprise some people, I'd have it be the Bears.
Yeah, if he comes out like Stroud did last year, we could be looking at this with 3 teams coming from the North.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a team in the North and the West that are not going to make the playoffs, the Vikings and the Cardinals. The South, there's 3 teams that aren't going to make it. It's whichever 3 don't win the division.
Right.
And there's 2 teams in the East, the Cowboys and the Giants, that I don't think I'm all confused on my NFC East teams today. The Giants and the Commanders. The Giants and the Commanders that I don't think a lot of people see making the playoffs. So I have the Lions, Eagles, Falcons, 49ers, Packers, Cowboys, Seahawks. Cody has the Lions, Eagles, Falcons, 49ers, Cowboys, Packers, Rams. Scott has the Lions, Cowboys, Falcons, Rams, Packers, Eagles, 49ers. So same 7 playoff teams for you guys. I have the Seahawks sneaking in. I'm going to take the reins a little bit here because we're long a little bit. So we are going to do the rest of it, but we got to go pretty quick. We're each going to give our final 4 and our Super Bowl pick. But unless you feel like we didn't get to talk about the team enough during the division time, I'll go first here. I have an AFC Championship game of the Chiefs and Texans. I just believe like the Texans could take that step forward. I have them winning their division. I like the Bills. I have winning their division, but I don't know if they have the firepower. I almost picked them. The Bengals, I'm sick of Joe Cool anyways. So I have Chiefs, Texans. On the NFC side, I have Lions, Eagles. 49ers feel that hangover a little bit. I don't think the Falcons are the team. I think the Lions are back where they were last year, and the Eagles have a rebound year. And I have the Chiefs over the Lions in the Super Bowl.
Repeat. Okay. All right.
You have to have the repeat, dude. Like
Cody, I'll go next. I'm really annoyed, but I'm gonna go next. My AFC Championship game, I had Chiefs Bengals. Chiefs have been to 6 straight, so it doesn't feel like that's going out on a limb there. The Bengals, as we already talked about, I see them playing the Texans in the divisional round and just Joe Burrow and that experience pulling it out over CJ Stroud. And then on the NFC side, I have an NFC North matchup, Lions-Packers. I think the Lions get the 1 seed, which means they're at home, inside, in a dome. So I got the Lions going to the Super Bowl, playing the Chiefs, and I have the Chiefs over the Lions, which I'm super annoyed about. Everyone who's listening to this is going to call me and you, Sasha, homers. But here's the deal. The Chiefs are the odds-on Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl. Yes, they're going for a 3-peat, and it's never been done. But I think the team has gotten better in the offseason. Last year was the year to get them, and they have Patrick Mahomes. So it's kind of stupid to bet against the best player on the planet until someone proves us wrong.
And I'll just caveat it a little bit. But if you're telling me, like, nobody's ever completed the 3-peat, if you're telling me to pick the Chiefs or the field, I would obviously be smart. I would pick the field. But if you're telling me to pick one team that I think has the best chance to win the Super Bowl, I still think it's the Chiefs. Cody? What say you?
I feel the same way.
All right. I actually think the Dolphins are going to get the number 1 overall in the AFC, and it's going to be them versus the Texans. I don't think the Chiefs make it to the championship game. I don't think the defense, I just don't. I love Steve Spagnuolo, and I think that they're going to have one of the better defenses. I just think that at some point it's going to catch up to them, that there's going to be a talent deficit that's going to catch up. I've got the Dolphins beating the Texans to go to the Super Bowl. And then on the other side, I have the Rams playing the Lions in Detroit, kind of the Jared Goff Super Bowl there, to go to the Super Bowl, which I think the Lions are going to end up winning that game. And then I have the Lions winning the Super Bowl to end this terrible streak. What team needs to win a Super Bowl more than the Lions to just get rid of the Chiefs? And we're not having a three-peat. There's no way. And you're not going to get me to pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
Says the guy wearing a says the guy wearing a Broncos hat.
Yes.
You don't like. Aren't you looking forward to Steve Spagnuolo making Tua cry in the playoffs again?
No, because he was crying because it was cold. When you're playing in Miami, it's a little different story in January. So I have a feeling that the Dolphins, and who knows, the Chiefs may not even make it that far in the playoffs. So we'll see.
They might not even make it to the playoffs.
Never know. They will be making the playoffs.
Yeah, unless Carson Wentz ends up on the field, I think the Chiefs will be in the
Yes,
playoffs.
100%.
I got to knock on some wood real quick. So we've got Chiefs over Lions for me and Scott, and Lions over Dolphins for Cody. Those are your Super Bowl picks. We're not going to get into the MVP conversation today. I said at the beginning, don't know if we'll have time, and we didn't. But maybe next week we'll get you some MVP picks. We'll be releasing a little bit earlier next week. We'll be in advance of that Ravens-Chiefs game on Thursday night, so we'll get you all the preview for that. We'll get you ready for the season. Give us a follow on Twitter at FieldVisionMI, on Instagram, FieldVision Sports. Check it out on TikTok, FieldVisionSports.com for early access, and the app will be launching before the next time you hear us. That'll be Field Vision Sports on the App Store on Apple and on the Google Play Store. You have to get it. You have to check it out. 2-week trial, see everything you want to see. You've been listening to The Matchup by Field Vision Sports. For Scott and Cody, I'm Sasha. We'll see you next time. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. We appreciate you joining the movement that is Field Vision Sports, the analytics platform built specifically for you, the fan. We look forward to taking you through this football season and beyond. And be sure to tell all your friends.